Hey everyone, me Kevin here. So Democrats are freaking out. Reporters from Politico and other sources are reporting details that were not supposed to be leaked to the media about what the heck is going on behind closed doors with Democrats. And let's hit these updates. Just a quick reminder to get 3 free stocks with Webull. When you deposit just $100, you get 3 free stocks with them. And of course, get life insurance in as little as 5 minutes. By the way, at the end, I'll probably answer a few questions. We'll even touch maybe on stocks a little bit. Okay, let's get right into this. So here's the scoop. It sounds like Nancy Pelosi and top officials close to her are warning that if Democrats swing too far left, they'll be certain to lose the Georgia runoff coming in January. Georgia's Senate runoff is being looked at as a potential for Democrats to take complete control of the Senate, which will allow Kamala Harris to be the tiebreaker vote. Then that leaves them with control of the House, the Senate, and potentially the presidency. That runoff does not occur until January 5th. But listen to some of these quotes and some of these statements, because some of these statements are absolutely nuts. Like literally, Democrats are losing it. And this is not me trying to slam Democrats, okay? I'm not taking sides at all, just saying. Here's the thing. We got Jim Clyburn, the House Majority Whip. This is where we're starting slow here, okay? Jim Clyburn says, quote, "If we are going to run on Medicare for all, defund the police, socialized medicine, we're not going to win," referring to that Senate election. Basically, the slams from Trump and Republicans are now being heard by Americans, Democrats feel, and Democrats are worried that they are being deemed, quote, radical leftists and having, quote, liberal wish list plans and policies, including police defunding, the expansion of the Obamacare program, aka the Affordable Care Act, now being called Biden Care, tax changes, the Green New Deal, and so on and so forth. So Democrats are citing these warnings because they're trying to understand why they didn't win as big as they expected to on Tuesday. Instead of winning big, they actually lost seats in the House and races were much tighter than they expected. And so now everybody's basically pointing the finger. Some Democrats are saying that polling is to blame, that people weren't motivated to get out and vote because Democrats were supposed to win in a landslide. That's at least according to, well, pretty much most polls, in which case we might have seen the same problem that we saw in 2016, where people just didn't come out to vote because they might have thought they didn't need to. Others are saying, no, it's actually radical statements that are causing some members of the Democratic caucus to basically not be liked by the majority of America, leading them to lose their seats or lose their election bids. And these are statements basically that Democrats are worried Democrats are being punished for. And so Pelosi says rather than focusing on things like defund the police and Green New Deal, Democrats should focus on, quote, an agenda of lowering healthcare costs, bettering paychecks, and building infrastructure. Notice she doesn't talk about the police. She doesn't talk about Biden care. And instead, she talks about lowering the cost of healthcare. She doesn't talk about the Green New Deal. And instead, she talks about infrastructure. And overall, she just takes a much more neutral approach. Pelosi then goes on to say that the January 5th runoff in Georgia will be, quote, fraught with meaning, and says that this election has, quote, been a life or death fight for the very fate of our democracy. She sees January 5th as a culmination of all of this. A huge make it or break it moment, in other words. If Democrats don't get that runoff seat in Georgia, Republicans would essentially maintain control of the Senate, leading to what the stock market sees as 2 years of gridlock. Now, Nancy Pelosi then goes on to say, quote, "We didn't win every battle, but we did win the war." She said, "We held the House, and Joe Biden, in Nancy Pelosi's opinion, is on a clear path to be the next president of the United States." Obviously, this is disputed by the Trump team, though Biden did just hold a press conference saying when the votes are finally counted, he's confident that he will be president. Tentatively, Donald Trump has not yet made any remarks today, and he's not expected to make any remarks. His press pool has already been called off, and he has not spoken publicly since early Tuesday morning, except for on Twitter, where he said things like, quote, "stop the fraud and stop the count." For Democrats, this has gotten so intense, and this is where, the quotes get a little more wild. This has gotten so intense that Representative Debbie McCarcel Powell from Florida started crying when she lost her bid for House Representatives or for a House Representative seat in Florida, and urged Democrats to not, quote, tweet attack each other. Then Abigail Spanberger, a Democratic representative from Virginia who's expected to win, called the election a failure and said, quote, here we go, quote, "No one should say defund the police ever again." Going on to say, quote, and she's a Democrat, going on to say, quote, "Nobody should be talking about socialism." She said if Democrats keep going when it comes to 2022 and the midterm election, quote, "we will get effing torn apart." Except she actually said the word. As a result, Democrats are really worried about blowing their chances in January from controlling the Senate, which basically leaves us with gridlock again. And so Democrats complain that they've lost members they shouldn't have, and that Democrats are leaning too far left, which is causing them not to succeed in the election as much. And they're partially also blaming polls for being overly optimistic for Democrats again. Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee Chairwoman Cherry Bustos says, quote, "I also want to say the thing we're all feeling. I'm furious. Something went wrong across the entire political world," she says. Quote, "Our polls, Senate polls, governor polls, presidential polls, Republican polls, public polls, turnout modeling, and prognosticators all pointed to one political environment, aka Democrats winning. That environment never materialized as much as they thought." Okay, well, those are some pretty intense updates from Democrats. Now think about this. On the election and election lawsuits, well, this is where things also get a little bit interesting. So Pennsylvania's Attorney General is now urging the U.S. Supreme Court to reject any intervention in the election. Because remember, Donald Trump on Tuesday morning at like 4 a.m. said, we're taking this to the Supreme Court. But in order to take this, ballot counting issue to the Supreme Court, you actually have to file lawsuits in the states first. But that doesn't do you much good if those lawsuits get rejected out of the gate. Now, in theory, you could still appeal and go to the appeals courts for the states and maybe eventually make your way up to the Supreme Court, but it's not a good sign if every court you go to starts shutting you down. Remember, Texas shut the GOP down. Michigan shut the GOP down in the Trump lawsuits. We've got Georgia just shut them down as well. So, in terms of some of these lawsuits, so far, they've been striking out. Now, here's the other fact. The Trump campaign just minutes ago came out of the Pennsylvania Convention Center with a megaphone in front of a large crowd of mostly Trump supporters and said that vote counters in Pennsylvania are not letting the Republican poll watchers do their job to watch ballot counting within 6 feet, arguing that they can't get close enough to see if the ballots are valid. And they claim that there's a reason, or there must be a reason, vote counters are not allowing poll watchers to get closer to look to see if these ballots are legitimate. They say that this is basically suppressing the election results. They say, quote, "They won't let us look at the ballots, and that we have filed a federal lawsuit in Pennsylvania's courts to get an injunction immediately." They went on to say, "We will not let the people of Pennsylvania down without having every single ballot watched." This was very intense, by the way, and they were shouting, all the while with the crowd sort of chanting pro-Trump commentary. And they went on to say, "We believe every legal ballot has the right to be counted, and we have the right to look at those." This is because they have fears that maybe these ballots aren't legitimate, or they're duplicate ballots, or maybe they're not filled out properly. Then we've got, let's see here. So essentially the big argument, and keep this in mind in terms of the takeaway, the Trump team is arguing that ballots should only be counted if they are legal and legitimate. So they want to make sure that, dead people aren't voting, or that people who are no longer living in the state aren't able to vote. They call those non-legitimate ballots, and they worry that there could be thousands upon thousands of late ballots, especially in a state like Nevada. That really matters. When you're 11,500 votes apart, you've got a big issue with potentially late ballots coming in. So, okay, that's the update that we've got for right now. Now, I do want to say the stock market is absolutely on a tear, absolutely loving all of this potential for gridlock. The stock market likes that because ultimately things stay the same. You get sameness when when we have gridlock in Congress, and that's kind of what we're seeing right now. Even in after hours right now, I mean, NEO's been killing it in the last few days. It's been a great stock I recommended first a few weeks ago. In after hours here, we've got Zillow up 10%. Great company. Dropbox down again. I mostly try to stay away from Dropbox. Peloton down 6.6% to about 118. It did run up a bit this week following last week's decline. I kind of stay away from Peloton at these prices. I have them in my portfolio, but I can't justify buying Peloton over 110. But overall, the entire stock market, I'll switch on over to the Webull app just so you could see it here. But the overall stock market, is everything has just been so green this week, just sort of as a way of evidencing that the stock market is really jazzed about this. These are mostly the stocks that I follow here, and just everything across every sector is pretty green. Even the recovery stocks, which is shocking because we've got COVID cases essentially skyrocketing. I mean, we had 107,000 cases in just the last 24 hours. And Dr. Fauci warns of essentially exponential growth. So we've got some really big problems coming. And it's very likely that these next 2 months can be very contentious, not just with lawsuits, but also, I mean, look at the fact that, we still have this runoff election coming. So I'll take a peek here at some of the commentary. Okay. I mean, most of the commentary, I have to say here, it's a little partisan. Meet Kevin News Network. Yeah. Fund me a wig. Okay. All right. So I do agree that we need stimulus. I will say this morning, the very first update that I made on stimulus, I am very disappointed that I heard advisor to Donald Trump, Stephen Moore, say that Donald Trump may not be interested in doing a stimulus package if he loses, because that's basically like him leaving office, throwing a bunch more debt onto sort of the economy or the United States' balance sheet. And then all of a sudden, they feel like they can blame Trump for basically raising the debt, and he doesn't want to leave with that reputation. So you've got this problem where even though we need stimulus and we need this support, it's possible if Trump does lose, we probably have to wait until January, February for stimulus. So you've got some major issues, happening overall with the economy. My goal is to try to stay in the middle as possible with covering the news and all that, all what's going on. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is madness out there. It is insane. Every time you turn on the news or you see what's going on out there, it is nothing but drama and fear. So, okay, that's the update for right now. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for the $5 donations. Really appreciate you. Thanks for being here. Check out those 3 free stocks with Webull you can get when you deposit $100. Link down below, and get your life insurance in as little as 5 minutes. Thanks, everyone. Bye.